Welcome to 1001 Crazy. In this exciting video, we look at some of the biggest train crashes ever caught on camera. Trains are an important way to travel around the world, but accidents can still happen because of technical problems or human mistakes. This video shows major train accidents in history, giving viewers a rare look at moments when safety failed. Let's get started.
Norway's railway snowplow in action, a spectacular sight. Train tracks have been a regular sight in cities for a long time, but it's incredible how they can be so well integrated into the environment in certain places. In Vietnam's capital city of Hanoi, there's a bustling alley that leaves tourists with unforgettable experiences. With a population of around 6.5 million people, Hanoi faces a pressure issue of urban density and rampant illegal construction. One notable consequence is a stretch of railroad tracks extending south from the central station. This track essentially serves as a street where ordinary life buzzes with houses, restaurants, street vendors, and even laundry hanging out to dry. The atmosphere here is simply incredible, but the most thrilling moments come when a train passes through.
Feels like they're just trying to make sure Tesla owners aren't making a difference. That is way too much smoke. Being late to work or school won't matter if you lose your life. Stay off the tracks!
One might think that flooding would be a good reason to halt train operations, but that's not the case. This crew of engineers in Argentina didn't even slow down while passing through the flooded area.
I know there's a lot of pollution going on here, but isn't this just such a sight? Being that close to the side of a derailed train carrying that many tank cars is bold, especially when they're all carrying highly flammable ethanol. Thankfully, there were no explosions and everyone on board was safe.
This video was filmed in Moore, Oklahoma. It It's alarming when heavy train cars unexpectedly go off the rails just a few meters away from your vehicle. It's best to get away from the crash site as soon as you can.
Looks like this RTD train forgot one of the most important rules of the rails: slow down at the curves. This train derailment occurred at the Aurora intersection back in 2022. Thankfully, nobody got seriously hurt. This has got to be one of the greatest near misses in near miss history.
15 freight train cars derailed in White Marsh, Pennsylvania. As often happens in such cases, nearby residents were evacuated, especially since the cargo included liquid fertilizers and tetrachloroethylene, a degreasing chemical. Although no hazardous substances leaked this time, incidents like this always pose an environmental risk.
To the tracks and surrounding area. Now the NTSB and Federal Railroad Administration are investigating the cause, supervising cleanup, and will ultimately clear the tracks for use.
When there's a lot of coal dust in the air, a steam train turns into a real fire show. An incredible action scene that showcases both the power of nature and the strength of human-made technology. Filmed in New Brunswick, Canada, where heavy snowfalls and drifts are common, this footage demonstrates how the train engineer plows through massive snowbanks with ease. The locomotive sends snow flying in all directions, truly impressive. The locomotive engineer failed to switch tracks on the historic Strasburg Railroad in Pennsylvania.
In this area, a mini landslide had occurred a few hours before this train was set to hit the tracks. But despite taking all the necessary precautions, disaster struck and the train was derailed. Thankfully, only cargo was on board, so no one was harmed.
In weather like this, you typically brace for surprises like skids and limited visibility, but this time it's different. The driver made a pass to get ahead at the railroad crossing, which was about to open any second. The barrier lifted, signaling it was time to go. Not for the cars though, but for the train. In just a few seconds, the electric train zoomed through the crossing, announcing its arrival with a loud honk. It's a risky situation. Just imagine what would happen to a car if they collided. The only thing that could have warned drivers before the honk was the traffic light stubbornly staying red even after the gates and barrier opened. Thankfully, drivers on both sides of the crossing didn't rush, and everything went well. In dangerous spots like crossings, it's best to be extra careful. In 2024, a freight train derailment paralyzed life in the city of Sonora, California.
Oh, great. Now I got stay in my car.
On the morning of January the 20th, shocked drivers watched as several tank cars went off the rails and rolled onto a busy intersection, damaging the road and 5 vehicles. Fortunately, the propane tanks were empty, so the dangerous situation didn't escalate into a catastrophe. According to a spokesperson for the transport company, the derailment was due to soft, saturated soil that compromised the stability of the tracks.
No, this is not Big Alice from Snowpiercer, it's simply a snowplow train in Canada doing unbelievable work.
This is how they were testing a new fuel tender design, by simulating a collision with a truck weighing 36 tons, traveling at about 70 kilometers per hour. The test went well, and its findings will help develop safer ways to transport flammable materials.
Trust me, train spotting is just as much fun at a safer distance.
In this video about railroads and cognitive errors, a guy with a plank in his hands waited at a crossing for a train to pass on one track. Not realizing that a train might come from the opposite direction on the second track at the same time, especially since the first train was blocking his view. Thankfully, someone shouted a warning just in time. During Bangladesh's annual Biswa Ijtema festival, traveling on overcrowded trains becomes a unique part of the pilgrimage experience for many. While these passenger journeys aren't exactly safe or normal, it's impressive to see the skills of the train drivers. During the rainy season, Indian trains turn into water transport.
A few days before Halloween, black smoke covered the city of Dunkirk, New York in 2013. Unfortunately, it wasn't part of the Halloween festivities. Due to a malfunction, a fire had erupted in the engine of a Norfolk Southern train. Thanks to the quick action of the engineer and swift response from the local fire crew, no one was harmed.
and car incidents don't just happen at crossings. Somehow, owners left their cars dangerously close to the tracks, so it's no wonder they got hit by trains passing by. This is what happens when basic safety rules are ignored. In just one night of intense frost, a thick crust of snow and ice built up on the locomotive. For engineers, the top rule in such extreme cold is to keep the engine running at all costs.
In the summer of 2023, a Lake State Railway train in Bay County, Michigan suffered a derailment. Fortunately, no one got hurt.
There was a short circuit at a station in India where electric wires for trains can carry up to 27,500 volts. Even standing a few meters away from these lines could result in burns, but thankfully, no one came close enough.
Whose bright idea was it to use wood to construct railroad trestles? $10 million up in flames.
When it's the rainy season in the tropics, there's water all around. Passengers at Nalasopara station in Mumbai, India found this out firsthand. Later, the railway crew commented that the engineer had followed all the rules. Even that amount of water shouldn't have changed the speed. This is how the city authorities have realized it's time to repair the tram tracks.
In this heart-stopping scene, a woman had absent-mindedly left an empty stroller on a station platform. As if her luck wasn't bad enough, a train happened to be passing by. The empty stroller rolled right into the tracks and got crushed to bits.
Careless parking near railway tracks can lead to fatal consequences, and here is the proof.
Aquí Notisistema informando. Hasta aquí mi reporte, Joaquín. Dice el tren que le vale verga.
In this incredible scene, a train driver ran down all the train's aisles, telling passengers to brace for the impact of a crash. I'm not sure if it was fear or his quick thinking, but whatever it was, the passengers were able to protect themselves and no injuries were recorded.
In Gibbon, Nebraska, people driving by managed to film a major railroad accident. The video shows just how quickly train wrecks can happen. It was truly a devastating and major incident. The transportation company reported soon after the crash that a freight train derailed for unknown reasons. 20 different cars damaged, many of them overturned. Fortunately, no one was injured in the accident. The train was moving at quite a high speed, causing the carriages to scatter over a large area and completely block all 3 railway lines. Thankfully, none of the carriages reached the nearby road. A run-in with one of those carriages, each weighing several dozen tons even without cargo, would not have been a good thing. In 2018, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania saw its biggest train accident in years when 7 freight cars derailed within the city. The situation was complicated by the fact that the train was crossing over an automotive tunnel, causing the cars to roll off and drop from above. Fortunately, the cars were only carrying dog food and mouthwash, not hazardous materials.
The railroad has said in the past
Investigators found that the engineer had done nothing wrong, operating the train within the permitted 30 km/h speed limit. The cause of the accident was ultimately determined to be a broken or cracked rail. The transportation company estimated the damages from the incident at around $800,000.
Speaking of quick thinking,
Impressive footage was captured during a demonstration where a locomotive collided with cars. This visual display was part of a program by the Polish Railways, aimed at highlighting the importance of safe driving near railway tracks. The simulation was quite convincing. Even without any cars, and not traveling at high speed, the locomotive showed just how little chance cars have in such collisions. Seeing a collision through the eyes of a train engineer.
A Norfolk Southern train experienced a mechanical malfunction in 2008 that resulted in a locomotive fire. Fortunately, no lives were claimed and the situation was kept under control.
Bridge accidents are always especially dangerous. Luckily, after the train derailed at the interchange in Kansas City, the engineers managed to respond promptly. While the accident didn't result in any falls or significant damage to the bridge, the engineers had to work hard to remove the damaged cars from such a height.
He had only a second to choose between his bike and his life. I think he made the right choice.
Flooded railway tracks aren't good enough a reason to stop trains, especially in Asian countries where heavy rains and floods are common. You might wonder about the risk of electrical shorts. But modern trains, whether diesel or electric, are designed to be waterproof and nearly airtight. The same goes for electric trains. The current that passes through the traction equipment to the wheels, which contact the rails, follows the path of least resistance and doesn't flow into the water, but returns to the traction substation. A fire that broke out in an industrial building in Richmond, Canada, spread to an old decommissioned railway trestle. The wooden bridge, treated with creosote, a wood preservative, produced thick plumes of black smoke that stretched for kilometers and significantly degraded air quality. Firefighters worked throughout the night to extinguish this unusual blaze.
A little snow on the tracks. This formidable train plowed through it like it was nothing.
That was awesome!
The video shows footage of train brake tests after the uncoupling. The tests were conducted at high speed, around 200 kilometers per hour. At this point, you can clearly see the locomotive and the cars moving separately, but the train hasn't started slowing down yet. An unusual incident was captured on video in Houston, Texas. One of the cars from an extremely long, empty train derailed for some unknown reason. Remarkably, this didn't seem to affect the overall movement of the train for a while. However, the situation became critical at a level crossing when vibrations caused a wheel set to break loose from the derailed car.
It's the choo-choo challenge. Clearly, train drivers aren't against some friendly competition.
An absolutely bizarre scene at the crossing. It seemed like the train zoomed by just a few centimeters away. In June 2022, a devastating train derailment occurred in the small town of Shiner, Texas. A freight train carrying open coal cars went off the tracks near the town's main intersection, spilling its cargo onto the roadway.
When did it happen?
Fortunately, the flying debris from the cars didn't harm any people or vehicles, but it did cause significant damage to the road infrastructure and knocked down power lines. Most importantly, the accident blocked traffic in that area for nearly a day.
They got a rotary coupler where
Our obsessive need to film anything interesting around us just might be the end of the human race.
Another emergency at a railroad crossing was captured on a car's dashcam. Initially, everything went smoothly as the locomotive and its cars crossed the road peacefully. But moments later, the cars somehow uncoupled and rolled backwards, almost colliding with passing vehicles. One of the most frequent and perilous accidents, cars uncoupling unexpectedly, can be caused by negligence or equipment failure. Now it's up to the locomotive to chase down the runaway cars.
Куда ты открываешь?
Coupler detachment is one of the most common incidents on railways, primarily caused by faulty automatic couplers.
Believe it or not, in the 1930s, it was popular to stage train wrecks for entertainment, and people would pay good money to see it. But today, you're seeing it on YouTube free of charge.
Transporting rails is a complex process that calls for strict safety measures. In this case, the workers attempted an unloading maneuver by synchronizing multiple forklifts, a complicated plan where too much could go wrong. The result was a unique accident. The rail car derailed while parked. In the end, it caused an unusual accident. A parked rail car came off the tracks.
To connect a train car to another, an important part known as a drawbar is required. In this case, a malfunctioning drawbar on the train caused the cars to separate. The automatic brakes were triggered and no casualties were recorded.
Smelled like fire. I don't know what's going on.
Вагон оторвался.
Panic leads to the worst possible decisions. Luckily, the train hadn't picked up full speed yet.
A distributed power unit went up in flames on the tracks of Tehachapi. But in no time, the firefighters sprung into action, got to the site, and put out the fire.
During freezing weather, contact wires frequently ice over. This makes it harder for the power collector to maintain contact, leading electric trains to spark. It might seem impressive, but it's not all that safe. Snowfall in southern Britain is an unusual event, typically causing major disruptions in transportation. Fortunately, that's not the case here. The sparks are simply a result of higher heat dissipation on the rails.
A high-voltage electrical malfunction almost caused a fire outbreak on this train. Thankfully, it didn't happen again, but this does make for a pretty good light show.
There's little that matches the grandeur of a classic steam train setting off on its journey. But this time around, things took an unexpected turn. To everyone's dismay, it turned out that a catch point had been activated, and none of the station crew remembered that or bothered to check the route.
The maintenance department will have a huge mess to clean up after this. Luckily, there were no casualties.
The Maeklong market in Thailand is a magnet for tourists. Imagine a narrow market right on a railway track. Every centimetre of space counts here, with goods placed just millimetres away from the rails. This remarkable synergy has thrived for over a century, ever since the Maeklong vendors chose to stay put, despite the railway being built right through their historic market. Don't forget that trains can't maneuver like other vehicles.
You know a train's well made when all of its parts were intact after a derailment. No crash, no casualties, no problems.
That just happened.
Now we're in Bangladesh. Here, the fruit vendor's stall is just centimetres away from the railroad, and he really doesn't want passengers to snatch his grapes as they pass by.
I wonder why the truck was in such a rush.
The crossing is broke! We're gonna have a collision! It's gonna hit!
Luckily, the only damage here is a crossing bar.
We're going into emergency!
A dramatic video shows a freight train accident in Brazil. Trains are like dominoes. If one car loses balance, the others nearby start to tip over too. It looks like the engineer might have been going too fast for this part of the track, causing vibrations that eventually led to the crash.
Caralho! Que pariu, mano!
Oil residues tend to build up over time in a locomotive's exhaust system. When the diesel engine ramps up its power, these residues catch fire and burn within the exhaust pipes, resulting in an impressive sight.
The knuckles of a moving train actually break more often than you think.
Train just busted couple open!
After the break, the train automatically comes to a halt.
Oh wow!
The crew then locates the separation and replaces the broken knuckle.
Two incidents occurred in Poland with different drivers of farm machinery, but they both perfectly illustrate what not to do at a railroad crossing. Ignoring the traffic lights there is already taking a big risk.
The train was supposed to stop, but it didn't, and this truck got stuck under the crossing gate. One wrong move, and you're looking at over $100,000 in damage.
When diesel locomotive exhaust fumes burn off, it looks really intense. You can even drift on the train tracks.
Not entirely sure how this truck got into such an awkward position on the tracks. It caused some serious damage to the train, but not a full derailment. The truck driver and everyone on board the train were okay.
This thing is called a buffer stop, a stationary bumper installed at the end of tracks to protect trains from damage in case of a low-speed collision. These shots capture a crash test conducted to see how well it works. As you can see, the bumper worked as intended, though one of the cars still got pretty banged up. A delightful surprise for all train enthusiasts.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my freaking god! Oh my god, are they okay?
Meet the experimental L0 series Shinkansen, a magnetic levitation train. Back in 2015, it set the world record for the fastest speed on a rail, hitting 603 km/h.
It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience to be able to witness a race between modern and an older train. The gag here is, the older train is taking the lead.
It's a good reminder that accidents are rare. Rail transport is built on harmony and precision.
Due to a train signal malfunction, this truck driver had no idea the train was coming. Thanks to his sharp reflexes, he avoided a deadly collision.
Unloading train wagons is a key step in railway transport. It's important to do it swiftly to prevent any holdups. Plus, the team needs to handle all sorts of cargo in sometimes cramped conditions, so they've got to be really skilled. Here, the process looks risky from the get-go. They're unloading a hefty bundle of steel rails from the rail car using a few forklifts. It's risky because it requires everyone to be completely coordinated. If not, it's bound to end in a loss of balance. Oh no, these guys couldn't handle it. And nothing good came out of it. The cargo fell off, causing the rail car to flip over. One of the forklifts got stuck hanging by its own forks. On the bright side, none of the workers were hurt.
In Nebraska, a train carrying multiple containers suffered a terrible derailment. Thankfully, no containers had crashed into the road and no injuries were recorded.
This is how people get hit by the bright line. This guy literally has a brand new Benz and this gate is literally sitting on his car. Oh.
I know technology has evolved greatly, but this is another level.
Lizzie Station is one of the most famous train stations in the world, located right within a 19-story building as part of the Chongqing Metro in China. The building, owned by the metro system, houses numerous offices. This unusual design isn't a whim of architects, it's a solution to the area's challenging terrain, which required the monorail to navigate steep elevation changes. At the port of Tekirdağ in Turkey, they managed to stop the runaway part of the train. The damaged gates actually helped by slowing down the car, preventing any further danger.
This is one of the most interesting train car dynamics I've ever seen. So in New Zealand, trains and cars can travel on the same lanes as opposed to using crossing gates to prevent situations like these.
Isn't it something? Rather than having a gated level crossing, the train crosses the road as if it's an everyday thing. From the way drivers act, it seems they're not keen on waiting for the lengthy freight train. Many try to slip through before the locomotive passes. It's definitely something city officials should think about. In Thailand's Samut Songkhram province, the Mae Klong market draws thousands of visitors for its incredible, one-of-a-kind atmosphere. This vibrant market is set up right on an active railway line. 8 times a day, a passenger train rolls through, creating a live spectacle. Vendors quickly fold up their canopies and skillfully move their baskets and crates to precise spots, just inches out of the train's path. As the train crawls through, it passes mere centimeters from the colorful produce, fruits, and diverse goods lining the tracks. This custom developed over the years. When the railway was first built in the early 1900s, local vendors refused to move, and this remarkable practice became a tradition. In Atlanta, decommissioned subway cars are getting a second chance at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It's all a part of a major environmental initiative dating back to the 1970s. The idea is to build an artificial reef off Georgia's coast that's perfect for local wildlife. Before being submerged underwater, the cars were cleaned of any potentially harmful materials. Just a few months later, they'll be covered in a layer of coral and sponges. Ecologists see this method of disposing of old train cars and equipment as a sustainable solution that supports ocean resources. Railway accidents are not often caught on camera, but their aftermath always becomes a popular subject for filming, especially since it's hard to quickly clear away the wreckage. Here, we have the chance to see the results of an accident on a Polish railway from different angles. It's clear that many freight cars were seriously damaged, with one of them even ending up on top of another after the impact. The locomotive that derailed also sustained damage, but fortunately the engineer wasn't hurt. Normally in these situations, investigators will determine the cause, but based on what we can see, it looks like a brake system malfunction. Sparks under trams are caused by a weakened connection between the wheels and the tracks. This often happens due to rain or fallen leaves. Train car derailments often cause damage to the supports holding up the overhead wires. All train cars in the US have a lifespan of 50 years. After that, they take their final journey before being retired as scrap metal. This is what the last leg of that journey looks like.
That's all.
Sometimes accidents don't really look that impressive.
I can't talk right now. I'm doing hot guy.
A train arrives at a snow-covered remote station in the Scottish Highlands. A stunning sight. This accident, where thankfully no one was hurt, seems like a clash of two eras. A car veered off the road and collided with a tourist steam train in Romania. The impact was so powerful that it knocked the locomotive off the tracks. The Federal Railroad Administration of the United States is responsible for ensuring safety in rail transport. This includes experimental work, such as conducting crash tests to improve standards and regulations for rail operations. For the average person, these collisions vividly illustrate the tremendous amount of energy train operators must handle. Combined transport means using various transport modes to deliver one shipment. For instance, railway cars that travel on sea ferries. The docking facilities are key in this process, ensuring smooth connection between the railway tracks on deck and those on land. The Harz Mountains are a popular tourist destination in Germany, where you can enjoy a ride on an authentic narrow-gauge railway built over a century ago. But even on such an idyllic route, mishaps can happen. Thankfully, in this case, it only led to a few minor scrapes. From using electric trains, we know that pantographs are vital elements of the overhead system and require special care. In this situation, there could have been a short circuit, or the wire could have overheated. Diesel engines are rugged relics from the industrial era. Just starting one up is like watching a mini volcanic eruption. The average freight train in the USA typically has around 70 cars and stretches over 2 kilometers long. It's no wonder any accident, especially a large derailment, becomes a serious problem. In these drone shots from Tennessee, you can see rescue crews in action. Within just a day, they've completely cleared up the chaos right after the crash. They've moved the scattered cars and, most importantly, completely fixed the damaged track. And now the trains are running smoothly again. Great job all around. Once it breaks loose, a rail car can accelerate rapidly thanks to inertia, speeding along the tracks like a meteor. A massive crash happened here when 17 coal cars went off the rails. They each weighed about 80 tons, so when they crashed, they really smashed each other up. After such an accident, restoring the railway involves clearing the track of derailed cars, laying down new tracks, and fixing the overhead line supports. It's a massive operation that requires work trains, lots of construction equipment, and workers. Each incident like this poses a real challenge for railway workers. Unfortunately, it's still not possible to completely prevent derailments. For instance, one potential cause could be rail displacement, which is difficult to detect quickly. Typically, open cars have special drainage holes, but this time the car turned into a pool on wheels.